Welcome to episode 24 of PokeClass. States has finally come and gone, with many interesting results from both the UK and the US. There's about a month's gap before the second set of Battle Roads hits us, so we have some time to get ready for the new set and finally Nationals. During the States period, there was a lot of news, which I haven't covered yet, so this episode will cover the news I missed over States, what we learned from these tournaments, and the effect our new set will have on the game. I'm sure most, if not all of you, have heard about the terrible earthquakes in Japan and how it has affected the country as a whole. Speculation over many forums has been happening as to whether this would affect the organised Pokemon play over there. This is probably the last thing on their minds when it comes to thinking about getting back on track, but we've had news that Japan World qualifiers this year have been suspended until further notice. There hasn't been a new date set, as you can understand, and with Nationals coming up all over the world, it boasts a question as to whether Japan will have any players competing in this year's World Championship at all. I know you'll all join me in wishing the best for the country and the people within it in their time of need. Let's hope for the best, and we'll keep updated with what happens. Up next on the news list is the official beta release of the Pokemon TCG Online. If you haven't seen it yet, Pokemon Online is a new Flash application built into Pokemon.com where you can play games of Pokemon with AI opponents. So far, you can only play against computer-controlled opponents, but Pokemon released a press document containing information that it will eventually feature a full deck builder and the ability to play against other players from around the world. This is very exciting news for the game, as user-created programs such as Red Shark and Apprentice are both extremely popular with competitive players, as it provides a way to test 24 hours a day against real players from around the world. This form of playing will now be available with the support of Pokemon themselves. This means real images of cards, automated rules, and even online tournaments. Most players are looking forward to this and can't wait for its arrival. If you haven't played the beta version yet, then visit PokemonTCG.com to have a go. Next up is news about World's invite structures and the way grinders will be played. The official list of World invites has now gone up on the Pokemon website, and it looks pretty much the standard as other years. For the UK, there'll be 4 invites given out at Nationals across each age division, with the winner of each group getting a paid trip to San Diego. If you're not planning on getting top 4 at Nationals, then you may be hoping you have enough rating points to get you one. The UK are put in the European category, and the top 50 across Europe's rating table will receive invites. It's a pretty big number, but you'll need to be in the top 5 of the UK to even have a chance of making this. Hope for a decent performance of both Battle Roads and Nationals, and you could be booking your place to San Diego too. If you're going to San Diego anyway, whether you have enough points or not, you may be attempting the last chance qualifiers, or grinders as they're also known. The usual layout for these tournaments is that there are 8 invites up for grabs across each age division, so you need to go XO or X1 to definitely get a place in the usually traditional Swiss format. However, this year they have changed it to a best of 3 single elimination tournament. This means that you get paired up and play a best of 3 game with whoever is sitting opposite you. The twist is that whoever loses is knocked out of the entire tournament and the winner goes on. This is kind of like a last man standing, with the last 8 left without a loss at the end will go on to compete at Worlds the next day. This seems like a good idea to me, as people won't have to rely on resistance and other factors to make sure they're in the biggest tournament of the year. What do you all think about this? The last piece of news I have for you is about our new set, Black and White. Pre-release dates for this set have already been made, and start in around 2 weeks. This set will feature some game-changing cards, with the biggest threat being Pokemon Catcher, and I'll go over this a bit later in the episode. April the 25th gives us the new set just a few days over a month before UK Nationals, so we have a little time to test thoroughly with the new cards before we hit a huge tournament. This will pose some very interesting results across Battle Roads, with people testing out new techs, ideas and decks to take home some victory medals. So that's pretty much all the news that I've missed up until now, so on to the first part of the main feature. The States part of the season is now over, and we've all been battling it out to boost our ratings and win those new medals. So what have we learned from these tournaments? Let's have a look. These are the 4 decks which won the 4 events over here in the UK. We have 2 Luxchomp finishing first, along with Saberlock and Rogue Gengar Garchomp also taking first place. These aren't too surprising, apart from the latter 2, as Sableye isn't a very popular deck this side of the sea, and Gengar Garchomp is just straight rogue. What is more interesting is the top 4 appearances. This is a list of the top 4 appearances across each tournament during states. Luxchomp is not surprisingly the top contender, but the second most successful deck was Magnezone Machamp. This deck saw some light during the ECC by going 8-0 in Swiss, but it was played just straight Magnezone rather than pairing it with Machamp. These two cards have great synergy, and some tight lists have been developed over the states period, with some great players taking them far in top cuts. I mentioned it in my early episode, covering the ECC, that this deck will be an interesting choice during states, but I don't think anyone predicted how well it would do in the UK. With a lot of people playing Luxchomp or some Garchomp variant at the moment, Magnezone Machamp is a great play, as it has a favourable matchup against SP. This may have been the reason why it has done so well, with all the Luxchomp running around at the moment. The inclusion of a single Machamp from Stormfront brings the matchup more into Magnezone's favour, and the sheer ability of Lost Zoning 3 energy to KO every card in Luxchomp means it can roll through it when played correctly. The appearance of Sableye was made by none other than Sammy Sakoum, without a doubt the best player in the UK as it stands. He has won a crazy amount of nationals in a row and played this deck to perfection to take down Vilegar, Luxchomp and tough matchup Magnezone, making him the state champion of London. This is the first tournament he has played in so far, and from asking around who he played, it was noted he played no Blaziken FB level X or Luxray level X and only a 1-1 Honchko SV line. This makes for a ton of questions when it comes to how he built it, but it obviously worked without a hitch. Maybe more people will start picking up the deck and start learning how to play it effectively when Battle Roads finally hits. As a summary, we can still see Luxchomp staying strong at the top of the metagame, but decks are being built to take it straight down again. Veteran players of the deck will know the ins and outs and will still be able to play it well around these counters, but the amount of Luxchomp is sure to dip when it comes to our new set being released. Rogue decks do stand a chance, with Rogue currently being most things apart from Luxchomp in the UK, and poses a question as to what will turn up at Battle Roads and even Nationals. I must be honest and say it's great to see some very creative decks being made, and some diversity within deck choices also. Seeing decks like Magnezone and Gengar Garchomp start to take up spaces in top cuts makes for a positive outlook on the game before we start playing for the final crucial points for Worlds invites. That's all we have for states this year, so let's have a quick look at the future. Pokemon Black and White is soon to be hitting the shelves on the 25th of April, just in time for Battle Roads. There are many interesting cards which will slot into the metagame, creating entirely new decks and cards to put into already popular ones. Pokemon Catcher is one of the most hyped cards from this set, being a modern version of base set's Gust of Wind. This card simply allows you to choose one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and switch it with their active. Think of it as a Luxray level X in a trainer card. I talked more about how it works in episode 20, but what will change because of this card? I would think that Luxchomp could be a less popular choice of deck, with other SP variants rising in popularity. Garchomp CX is still a very powerful card, while the SP engine is in format, so I wouldn't say bye to that too soon. The change will be Luxray. With the Power of Bright Look being available in a trainer card, it may see less play because of this simple reason. The only reason I can think for keeping copies of your Luxrays is because Trainer Lock may become much more popular. Cards like Vileplume, Spiritomb and Gothitelle block the effects of Pokemon Catcher, but can't affect Luxray's Bright Look, so don't put your Luxrays on eBay just yet. Another note on Pokemon Catcher is that Machamp from Stormfront is given a card to bring up any basic Pokemon on the bench to KO with Takeout. So those Drifblim that SP players tech in to avoid a Takeout may just be useless from now on, as Pokemon Catcher will just bring up one of your benched SP to take out. The release of Pokemon Catcher may also see a fall in one-off techs, such as Lucario GL, as they can be cheap prizes for decks that will now run this card. There are a ton of possibilities that come with the release of this card, and we'll just have to wait and see to find out how well it will work and how players utilise this very powerful card. One of the most substantial changes in the game I can see is the rise of Gyarados. Gyarados has fallen incredibly in numbers over the states period, because of the threat of Lost Guard was too high. Now we've seen that Lost Guard just isn't performing well in this current format, Gyarados will start to see more play. This isn't the only reason though. New cards are being introduced such as Professor Juniper, Max Restore, Revive, and Pokemon Capture, which helps Gyarados' strategy a ton. Being able to discard 3 Magikarps in one go, and draw 7 new cards all at the same time, is incredible, and may help Gyarados to become a much more powerful deck like it once was. This set will hit the current format hard, with a great collection of new Pokemon as well as trainers, helping players to build some very creative decks. There has also been a rising discussion about the new black and white rules, which may help decks such as Sabledonk become an incredible force, but I'll talk about that in a later episode when we have confirmation of this. That's a lot to take in about what will happen to the game as we've known it for the season so far, so make sure you all prepare well for the changes we'll see upon the release of the new set. That's all I have for you this week. Thanks for watching this episode, and make sure you check back next week for the next one. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you next week.